Well, it's a rare honor to be here with Robert Kiyosaki. Hello, Robert.
Hi, Jason.
Such a pleasure to meet you. You gave a fantastic presentation last night. We're here at the Red Pill Expo. And I know everyone has heard of many people call it a life-changing book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You cited a record. Is it the best-selling financial book in history, or what was the...
Right, the best-selling personal finance book.
That's amazing.
So it's for the average person like you and me.
I'm also interested in your game, the cash flow game. You were speaking how it helps people to understand balance sheets and actually rebuilds neural pathways. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, going back further, how did I learn about money? And it goes back to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My poor dad was an academic, probably a genius. He graduated from university in 2 years, then went on to Stanford, University of Chicago and Northwestern, and became the head of education for the state of Hawaii. And as you know, school teachers know nothing about money. I mean, you know, the PhD, I always told my dad PhD stood for poor, helpless, and desperate. So when I was 9 years old, growing up in Hawaii, I went to basically an all-white school, elementary school, 4th grade. And that was the first time I realized I was poor and stupid, because my white friends, their parents owned the car dealerships, the banks, the ranches, the plantations. And I kind of wondered at night, I said, how come I'm poor and they're rich? And that was what causes rich and poor. So I raised my hand and I asked my school teacher, who was like Dana Carvey and what's that show?
The Church Lady, yeah.
Church Lady, Wayne's World, or whatever it is. Or Saturday Night Live, you know, she goes, the love of money is the root of all evil. And I went, well, maybe evil to you, but I like to have some money, you know. And she almost kicked me out of the class because I wouldn't stop. I said, when are we going to learn about money? And she kept dodging the question, giving me these quasi-religious, you know, thing is, but it's easier for a camel to go to heaven than a rich man or something like that. You know? And I go, hey, I just want to know how to make money. And she couldn't tell me. And I go home and my old man can't tell me anything. And he's a PhD. And finally my dad, poor dad, said, well, the facts is the U.S. government tells me what I can teach and cannot teach. And money is one of the subjects we cannot teach. Now, 9 years old, I thought that was really strange. I'm going, well, why not teach me about money? And he says, well, your job is to get a job. But I said, but is it a job to make money? And it just, you know, it's like a dog chasing its tail, talking to my teacher, my father and my school teacher.
Right.
So finally, my poor dad, a good guy, you know, he said, look, go talk to your best friend's father. So here I'm 9 years old. I said, why would I talk to Mike's father? He says, because he's an entrepreneur. And I went, well, what's this an entrepreneur and what are you? He says, I'm an employee. And our school system pumps out employees.
Yeah.
You know, employees and self-employed like doctors and lawyers. Mm-hmm. So he says, so what's the difference? I asked him, I go, what's the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee? He says, employees don't need to know about money, but entrepreneurs must.
Yeah.
So with that, is I went to study with my rich dad. And my rich dad says he didn't want to teach me because it was a waste of time as far as he was concerned. Excuse my frog in my throat. He said, I'll teach you on one condition. I said, what's that? He says, you have to work for free. And it was like the test. I said, for free? I said, why? He says, because if I pay you, you're an employee.
Ah.
And that's where kind of the road forked.
Interesting.
And I didn't understand that at all, so I cut the deal with my rich dad. I'm 9 years old. I said, okay, I'll work for free, but you have to teach me about money. And that was a deal. So I go home to my poor dad, PhD, and he says, I'm going to call the government. They're going to come and arrest him. Child labor laws, all this stuff. I'm going, hey, Dad, I'm 9 years old. It's not, you know, I can't get that. It's not that big a deal. And so there was a fight between rich dad and poor dad.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, I would work for free doing different things like picking up cigarette butts in the gardens. He owned hotels and restaurants and stores. And then I work in his office doing some numbers and stuff like this, and best you can for 9. At the end of the hour, Rich Dad would teach me about money playing Monopoly. And so that was fun. I was having a lot of fun learning Monopoly. And one day I realized, I said, well, Rich Dad's not keeping up his end of the bargain. He's supposed to teach me about money.
Right.
And so finally I questioned him, and he says, I have been teaching about money. I've been playing Monopoly. And I went, what? And the brain didn't make the connection. And finally I just realized Rich Dad was playing Monopoly for real. And to my poor dad, the school teacher, it was just a kid's game.
Right.
And then today, at the age of 72, I'm playing Monopoly.
Wow, I can't believe you're 72. You look great.
Oh, thank you. But I have hotels, apartment houses, oil wells, businesses. And basically I became a capitalist. And as you know, our school system doesn't train capitalists. It trains socialists and Marxists, basically.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because you said a number of things last night. And of course, your new book, Fake Money, Fake Teachers, Fake Assets, it all comes back to the teachers. Now, I don't know
It's
if everybody...
fake education. Is what
Fake,
it is.
yes. And the Marxists, the socialists, this is real. This is not hyperbole that you're saying as a capitalist, because you also told us last night about you're a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, and you spoke about how when you returned to the United States, you were spat on.
Yeah.
Now, we had a little bit of a
By
conversation.
all those students from UC Berkeley.
Well, right. Exactly. So that's what I wanted to get into a bit, because you also said that your father was working at or involved with the University of Illinois and the University or Northwestern
the school teachers.
Right. But that's all tied into this weather underground, which is Bernadine Dorn, Bill Ayers. They were spitting on the Vietnam vets. They were violent.
Well, I don't know them personally, but I don't like to. That's the past,
Well, it is, but they became
still doing
teachers. Yes.
I know that. But they don't know it.
They don't know it.
No. Most people don't know the difference between capitalists, socialists, and Marxists. And it's really quite simple. The biggest story is found in Robin Hood. Take from the rich and give to the poor. It's a very popular story in school systems. The other thing is you teach a man to fish, which is capitalism, and you feed them for life. If you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. Now, I don't take sides. I'm neither Republican or Democrat. I believe in freedom of religion, freedom of gender identity. This is a free country. You do what you want to do. But there's a place for capitalism, and there's a place for socialism. There's a time to give people fish. When people are so down and out and desperate,
Right.
or so incapacitated for whatever reason, they should be given fish. But this also needs to be education on capitalism, teaching people to fish. And so I'm a capitalist. So my poor dad was basically socialist, Marxist. He wanted to, as a good man, they're good people, don't get me wrong. That's why I don't think it. And my dad, poor dad, was head of the Peace Corps. So here I am in the Marine Corps. So we were completely polar opposite people.
Yeah.
He wanted to save people, I wanted to shoot people. I didn't really want to shoot them, but I wanted to go to war.
Defend the country.
Yeah, and my father was a CO, conscious objector, during World War II. Imagine that.
Wow.
So that's how diametrically opposite we were. And on both my mother and my father's side, there were 7 uncles who fought in World War II. But my father was the only guy just stuck by his guns, and he said, I refuse to fight, which I respect also. So, your point of view.
Weren't Japanese Americans interred during World War II?
Yeah, and everything got stolen from them. Yeah, we lost a lot of stuff. But we still went to prove our loyalty, what was a thing called the 442nd from Hawaii. They were the most highly decorated World War II battalion in history. And I had, like I said, I had 5 uncles there, and I had 2 uncles fight against the Japanese.
Wow.
So
Your family's been in the United States for generations, right?
Yeah, I'm 4th generation. So anyway, I don't really take sides. You can be a Marxist and you can be capitalist. The trouble is our school systems tend to go for the Marxists, give people fish. So today we have, Ocasio-Cortez, we have, what's her name, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and I'm going, holy mackerel. Those are the guys that were spitting on me.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't want to take sides, but that's what I see. But you look at Ocasio-Cortez, she's drop dead gorgeous and all this stuff, young and pretty. But her FICO score is 425. Now what does that mean? The FICO score 425 means she borrows money and doesn't pay it back.
Wow.
So she's perfect in the government, you know what I mean? She's perfect. And I think the highest, most money she ever made with a college degree was as a bartender, $28,000 a year. Now she's hiring staff at $150K a year. God bless America, man. Here we have a bartender with a college degree, FICO score 425, handing out jobs at $150K. But to make it even worse, she's on the head of the Congressional Budget Committee.
It's really unbelievable.
I'm going, how does that happen? I couldn't get on that committee. And I know a thing or two about money. So anyway, I don't like to take sides. I would say all coins have three sides: heads, tails, and the edge. And I like to stand on the edge and look at both sides. I don't take right or wrong, because somebody's right if somebody else is wrong. To go to war was right for me, but to those guys you mentioned, it was wrong. And if I get into that battle, it's the same battle between Trump and Sanders, Bernie Sanders, or Trump and the Clintons. It's not worth my fight. My fight ended in Vietnam. So that's where I'm at. I teach capitalism.
Did you ever think you'd see socialism rise in America as a campaign platform? It seems like candidates are afraid to shy away from saying they like socialism.
Well, the problem is when I came back from Vietnam, the average American being functionally not literate economically, they may be highly educated as a doctor or lawyer, but they don't know capitalism, socialism, Marxism, and all that. So when I came back from Vietnam, I got interviewed, a returning Marine Corps veteran, a pilot, and all this. And they said, what'd you learn in Vietnam? And I said, well, if I wanted to shoot communists, I just come home and shoot them in City Hall. That didn't go over well. But I'm a Marine, a young Marine lieutenant, and I'd seen my friends die, and people, I'd seen stuff that people should never see.
Yeah.
And then they get spit on, and they get yelled at, called baby killer. And then, I couldn't get a date because women wouldn't go out because we had no hair. So it was a tough time, but just like my father stuck to it in the Peace Corps, I stuck it out in the Marine Corps. That makes all the difference.
Wow. You really are a remarkable person who's had a remarkable life. All this stuff that you're telling us and the positivity that you exude is I'm really taken aback. So your new book, Fake Money.
I want to say one
Sure.
last thing. There's a place for socialism, a place for capitalism. But when you make one right, the other wrong, we have war.
Correct.
So there's a time to give a man a fish, time to teach people to fish. And I think it's time we teach people to fish.
I was going to ask you. Yeah.
We're going bankrupt.
We are.
We're going bankrupt right now.
Is the United States a place for socialism?
Yeah, there's going to be rioting in the sheets. It's going to be like Venezuela. It's going to be like Zimbabwe, Greece. It's coming.
When do you think that'll happen?
It's already here. Do you realize in the year 2019, out of 150 days, 151 days, there was 151 mass shootings. That's how many there are. I think it's karma. It's what you put out comes back to you, because the U.S. has killed so many people in Syria and Afghanistan and all over the world, so we're killing each other inside this country. That's why kids are shooting kids in schools. It used to be just postal workers doing it. Now
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it. Let's go and shoot let's go shoot the guys we work with today.
Yeah.
And then they want to ban the guns. Well, it's not the guns, it's the people. Something sick.
Sort of the typical way our society works. They want to treat a symptom rather than the cause.
Problem.
Yeah. And it seems that your writing and your efforts are going more towards the cause. What can people expect from fake money, fake teachers, fake assets?
Well, this is the book here, and this book really came before this book.
Mm-hmm.
This here is elementary school, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is kind of graduate school, so it's not for everybody.
Not for everybody.
I've sold a lot of copies of this book. It's nice and simple. This thing's a little bit more in-depth. And then fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets are all the same thing. In other words, one cannot exist without the other. It is my point of view as an educator. I mean, I don't need to work anymore. I retired a long time ago. Without a job, without a pension, and without government support. But we have a bad education system. We have a fake education system. And it's the only system that allows fake teachers to teach. You know, when I was in an accounting class, I came back from Vietnam, went for my MBA. I was in accounting class. I knew more about accounting than my accounting teacher. And I asked, it's in fake. I said, are you an accountant? And the guy says, I have a master's in accountancy.
It's not yes.
There I am, I had my flight suit, Marine Corps haircut, you know, all these college kids at the University of Hawaii. And I am the Antichrist as far as they're concerned. So I'm sitting there, I said, that wasn't the question. I said, are you an accountant? He says, I have a master's in accountancy. I stood up, you know, because Marines have very low tolerance. You saw me last night. I don't have tolerance for that stuff. I said, that wasn't the question. Answer the question. Are you an accountant? He says, I have a master's in accountancy. And he couldn't say I'm not an accountant. Just like one of my really best friends, he teaches at UC Santa Barbara today. He teaches entrepreneurship. And I call him up, and he loves Ocasio-Cortez, he loves Bernie Sanders. No, he does. I mean, he's a teacher. He's a school teacher. Good guy. His wife's a good person. I said, Doug, how can you teach entrepreneurship? He says, I have an MBA. I said, that wasn't the question. I said, how can you teach entrepreneurship? He goes, I have an MBA in entrepreneurship. I said, how can you teach entrepreneurship? He couldn't get the question. I said, have you ever started a business? He goes, no. I have an MBA in entrepreneurship. And that's a fake teacher. But they don't know they're fake because they think having this degree qualifies them for the real world.
Right.
And that's why I wrote this book. We have fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. And in my world of finance, we have many fake teachers. Most financial planners are poor people. Most of them are. You know, most stockbrokers are broke. Most real estate agents are broke. That's why they're called brokers. They're broker than you are. And we take financial advice from them.
Yeah.
And they don't know if it works. They just sell it to us because they get paid a commission. Now, I don't blame them. I don't blame them for that. But at least have as my Mexican friends would say, the cojones to tell people I have less money than you. And I'm giving you financial advice.
You pointed out the interesting dichotomy that Ocasio-Cortez has really little life experience, certainly no finance experience.
And she doesn't pay her bills.
Doesn't pay her bills.
Well, she's perfect for politics.
She's not an environmental scientist, but yet she's pushing this Green New Deal. And when I had the opportunity to speak to New York's junior senator, Kristen Gillibrand, who's now running for president, I asked her why. She was giving a presentation about the Green New Deal, which is so focused on carbon dioxide. Now, as far as I know, trees and plants and everything need carbon dioxide to create the oxygen that we breathe. And there's so many more contaminants in the environment that the Green New Deal doesn't seem to be focused on. Kristen Gillibrand told me that she wants to put a price on carbon. My fear is that we're getting more fake information about some of this climate science in order to create a new tax where the very act of exhaling is going to cost us money somehow.
Well, New Jersey just has a rain tax now.
Wow.
So if it rains, you get taxed.
How could they do that?
Well, because they're broke. You know, because they're run by people like AOC.
Right.
And, you know, look, you know, you got to step back and laugh at it because otherwise you go nuts. It's so crazy. It's nuts right now.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, so that's why I wrote fake. And in here, another big challenge, as you know, is social media.
Yes.
And Facebook, this guy, I forget his name now, but
Zuckerberg.
No, but he was friends with Zuckerberg and Cheryl. What's her name?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The guy from Brazil.
No. Cheryl is just a woman. She's Zuckerberg's right-hand person. Cheryl Saunders or something like that.
Yeah.
They're smart people, but they make more money from misinformation than real information.
Hmm.
So it sells, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. As you and I know, if you have you have a scene with a car and 55 people were shot and killed, as they say, if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
Now you could have a guy who's saving 10 kids, or you can have 10 kids that are murdered. Who's going to get the news? Well, the 10 kids that are murdered. It's human nature. But the problem is we have so many things that are fake. Look at, being a Marine Corps veteran or Vietnam veteran. They had Colin Powell, one, a great general from Vietnam area. He stood up there and lied. He says this weapons of Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. And that qualified us to go and bomb the hell out of Saddam Hussein. And I don't think he had weapons. Nobody knows if he had it, but he lied.
Yeah.
And he says that was the hardest day of his life because people are, I don't know why they do that. Haven't they got any morals or ethics? So if Colin Powell, a man I respected a lot, when he says his weapons of mass destruction, and they never found any, something's rotten inside this country.
Yeah. And also that's fake news, of course. He's
Correct.
putting that information out. I've come to sort of classify that stuff as social engineering. I think when Robert Mueller goes
pretty
on,
accurate.
yeah, when Robert Mueller comes on TV and starts to tell us about how he was not able to exonerate the president, he seems to be forgetting about the notion of the presumption of innocence. But you've just touched on a topic that goes back to the question I asked you last night, and I apologize if it wasn't clear. I've always been very confused by this petrodollar situation and how this relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia seems to supersede everything.
Well, you probably know more about it than I do.
I can't believe that.
No, I mean, you have to go beyond petrodollars. Vietnam was about oil. I went to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in New York. My background is oil, so I'm still blinded. I was sailing for Standard Oil, but the Vietnam War was on in '69, making $120,000 a year, which was pretty good back in '69. But I gave it up to make $200 a month or $2,400 a year, flying for the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And if I get to Vietnam, then also I remember my classes at the academy. Vietnam has oil. That's why we were there. The U.S. did not want China to get Vietnam's oil. The same thing happened the day the Archbishop Ferdinand in 1914 was shot. On that same day, Winston Churchill says, I'll go into World War I on one condition, that England gets Mosul. And where are we fighting today? Mosul. Why? 3 letters, O-I-L.
Yeah.
So it's always been that way. So I don't know, there's petrodollars and all this stuff. There was just so many of them made because the price of oil went from like 10 cents a gallon to $3 a gallon.
This is the common misconception that even the most educated people I speak to have. It's not, as far as I understand, linked to the price of oil, but all of the things that you're talking about are related. The Vietnam.
It's money.
Yeah. First of all, you're the first person who's told me about the Vietnam War being related to oil, but certainly the invasion of Iraq that Colin Powell gave us that fake information for. You may be aware, Saddam Hussein was the first guy to sell oil for euros, defying this petrodollar system that, as I understand it, Henry Kissinger put in place in 1973 after Nixon took us off the gold standard. He made a deal with the royal house of Saud, the Saudi Arabian royal family, and all of OPEC, that any oil transaction, any country buying
has to be in dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems that if we were to break this relationship with Saudi Arabia, the United States economy would collapse in a day.
Well, it's no different than what's that guy, the head of Libya who's dead?
Gaddafi.
Gaddafi.
He created the gold dinar and they killed him.
Yeah. So, when I was 19 years old, the thing I loved about the academy in New York, they put us on ships and we sailed all over the world as students. I did a correspondence course from ships all over the world. So one of the first places I stopped in was a place called Satahip, Thailand. And we were carrying 500, 750, and 1,000-pound bombs. Okay, so we pull into Sadaheep, and I go to this officers club. The officers club was no more than a huge mobile home. And so I'm sitting there having drinks, because I was technically an officer, being an academy student. And there were these guys, the white guys, 35 to 50 years old. And I said, "You guys Army? Are you guys Air Force?" No. "Are you Army? Are you Air Force?" And I said, "No, kid, don't leave us alone." So one day they took me to, "Why don't you come over to our house? We're having a party." So I said, "Oh, that's good." So I went to their house while we were discharging 500, 750, and 1,000-pound bombs. And they had this house on the beach with 9 million hookers running around. And I went, no, I'm like, what I mean. And I'm going,
less than 9 million.
Yeah, I know. I said, well, there was a lot of them. And I'm going, house on the beach and lots of women who you pay. I said, what business are you guys in? And they wouldn't tell me. And so finally, the ship's about to sail and all this, and I'm still bugging these guys at the officers club. Who are you guys? What do you do? And my first engineer, who kind of looked like Popeye the Sailor Man, this old scruffy guy, he goes, tattoos all over. He goes, "You stupid kid, you stupid kid." I went, "What?" You don't know anything, do you? So I'm 19 years old. He says, "Yeah, you're stupid. You don't know anything." I said, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And I went, "No. CIA." And I went, "What's CIA?" "We don't know." He says, "You see, I said, "What are they doing here?" And the engineer says, "We're starting a war here." I went, "How do you know?" He says, "Our ship, 500, 750, 1,000-pound bombs. We're going to bomb the hell out of these guys now." And so I'm going, holy mackerel. So we're not taught this in school. And CIA stands for Capitalism's Invisible Army.
Yeah, it does.
No, it is. We're protecting our oil.
Yeah.
So when I graduated from school, 3 years later, and I go to work for Standard Oil, the pieces of the puzzle start fitting together. And so the more I learn, the more you get to see the bigger picture of what really runs the world. And it's oil, you call it petrodollars, and money. That's it. And after 71, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, we just printed. So that's why that's why Rich Dad put it. I said, the savers are losers. The rich don't work for money. And I don't pay taxes.
Right.
And the last red pill I was at, this guy says, "See, you're an anarchist." And I said, "No, I'm a capitalist." He says, "No, you're an anarchist." I said, "No, I'm a capitalist." He says, "But you don't save money." I said, "I told you, I'm a capitalist. Why would I save money when they're printing money?" And
it's just getting less valuable as you hold it.
Why would you print? Why would you save it? And then I said, "And the rich don't work for money." He says, "See, you're an anarchist." I said, "The rich don't work for money." And the reason we have this gap right now between the rich and everybody else is the poor and middle class go to school to learn to be proletariat in Marxist terms. Proletariat is working class, people who work for money, doctors, lawyers, everybody's working for money. And the third thing is you don't pay taxes, which means you're proletariat. Which means you're
anarchist.
Anarchist. I said, "No, I'm a capitalist." And what happens is because most people come out of school with a Marxist orientation, they don't know what a capitalist is.
Right.
I think people hate him, President Trump. I wrote 2 books with him. And the reason he doesn't show his tax returns is I don't think he pays them. And it would drive the American public nuts. But he does it legally. You can do it legally.
Right.
And what the people that don't pay taxes, most of them are doing it illegal. It's called tax evasion.
Right.
So there's this war going on right now between the proletariat and the capitalists. And they think the capitalists are the crooks. I say it's the school system.
Yeah. President Trump seems quite adept at distilling things down into Twitter-sized bites that are intended for the lowest common denominator, and they, taken on their own, seem to explode heads. I didn't realize that you knew him personally. What's your impression? How's he doing as
You didn't do
president?
any research on me, did you?
I honestly didn't even know you were going to be here until I arrived.
I didn't read this right there in front of you.
I
I
apologize.
have two books with President Trump. He's a good friend of mine. I know people hate him and all this stuff. His son's a great kid. His daughter's fantastic. Very smart kids. In my book, Fake, there's an article the New York Times did on Jared Kushner, who's Ivanka Trump's
Right.
husband. And the same thing, most journalists are Marxist-oriented, socialist, not bad people, they're good people. But they don't understand capitalism. They don't understand how not to pay taxes, because they pay taxes. So they're after Jared Kushner, and they're accusing him of not paying taxes. Well, duh. If you're a capitalist, you don't pay taxes.
Right.
But the journalists can't understand it. And so in Fake, I explain, I go line by line what the New York Times journalist is saying, and also tracking tax code. It's perfectly legal what Kushner's, Trump's, myself do.
Yeah.
Because true capitalists don't pay taxes legally.
Right. And of course, you're talking about tax strategies, things that allow you to write off various elements of business.
No, you
or
better study tax.
yeah, I'm not.
No, give me real simple. Tax are incentives. No, for example, if I donate to my church, I get a tax break, right? I donate to charity, I get a tax break. I donate my car to some foundation, I get a tax break. It's no different. If I build apartment houses, I provide housing, I get tax break. If I drill for oil wells, I get huge tax breaks because the country needs energy, oil.
Right.
But if I invest in Exxon and Mobil, which the average person does, you get no tax breaks.
Right.
If I save money, I'm taxed on my interest. If I borrow money, I'm not taxed. This is capitalist education, but we don't get it in schools because most people are like my poor dad, PhDs, good people, smart, well-educated, but they know nothing about money.
And you've raised another really important point related to tax write-offs with charities. You made a really stimulating...
They're incentives.
Right.
Use the proper word.
Sorry, incentives.
The government wants you to put your money in certain things. See, in communism, which is a centralized controlled government, the government must build the houses. So you ever been in Russian housing?
I was in Ukraine one time.
Have you been in Russian low-income housing?
I don't know if it was low income, but it was a
Okay,
communist-built building.
Yeah, they're horrible.
It was horrible.
And so what happens is they want guys like me to go in there, finance and put the deal together, raise the capital, put the debt, operate them and all this, and I get huge tax breaks for it. If I drill for oil, I get huge tax breaks. Let me give you, let's say I put $100,000 into my oil well. I get $400,000 tax back day one.
Wow. So it's better than free. You're getting money to do it.
Yeah, so why would I buy Exxon or Shell or Mobil?
Wow.
But they don't tell you that.
And nobody tells you that
No.
except for you.
Well, most of my friends know it.
Yeah. The other thing you
So
said
that's the war between the capitalists and the Marxists or the proletariat right now, people who work for money.
Right. The other thing that you said last night that really caught my attention related to charities and tax-exempt organizations was you mentioned somebody that you spoke to at CFIUS who said
CFIUS.
that the Clintons were the biggest criminals around.
It was called Uranium One.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just repeating what he said. He is credible. He's a good friend of mine. So that's the only reason I repeat it. Otherwise, I would not have repeated it.
Sure.
There's a lot of rumors. But what he said to me was Bill Clinton, it was a Canadian Shell deal. I've taken 3 companies public also. A Shell is a public company they just kind of pull off the shelf. You package it, you dust it off, and you pump it back in. So the Clintons pulled a Canadian Shell, and they put U.S. uranium reserves into it and repackaged it and sold it to the Russians.
Right.
That's as Professor CFIA stands for Committee for Investing in the U.S. It's a CIA
Foreign
offshoot.
investment in the
Yeah,
U.S.
Committee for Foreign
Something like
Investment
that.
in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's a very secret little thing, but my friend is part of it.
Yeah.
And he says it's shocking The other guy is Barack.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they're not clean.
not
Same,
at all.
Same as Mandela.
You know,
These
many
are very
people.
popular people, you know.
Right.
So what he names he mentions, you go, oh, wow. But it's life, man. Grow
Right.
up.
Well, many people would also say that the Clintons might have done that with a Canadian shell company because Canada has no RICO laws, and they can do things, you know, take a short flight, hang out with your friend Frank Juicer, and avoid all the reach of the U.S. federal
Yeah.
government. So, do you think President Trump will succeed in prosecuting the Clintons for these crimes?
I'm not Republican or Democrat. I really don't like to get into that stuff
Got it.
because most of it is just emotional. Do you know what I mean? It's like Jesus is king, you know. I'm going, well, Lord. I'm going, well, you know, we're here to kill commies for Jesus. I'm going, what? No, that's the stuff I've heard. You know, I just don't want to get into it.
Sure.
So I'm just saying what I do know, what I know about tax law, the tax laws that I do use. There's lots of tax laws. You get tax breaks for raising avocados and growing kale. And you get tax breaks for R&D, research and development. So if I wanted to write off some money, I would just spend money on research and development, and it's a huge tax write-off. See, it's capitalism, but they don't teach you that in our academic system.
Yeah.
Because it's Marxist.
I know you have limited time, so just one last quick question here. You mentioned to me last night that you're on your own gold standard. Now, of
Right.
course, you're not printing money backed by gold, so I don't know if I understood what you meant when you told me that.
Well, in this book here, it's called an infinite return. An infinite return is where you don't need money to make money. So in 1971, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard and the dollar became debt. And so that's why these guys who say live debt free, they're actually anti-American. Because if you understand how debt works, if you and I don't get into debt, there's no money created. So only when you use your credit card, right? You get some credit, which creates debt. Money is created out of magic. Okay, so that's the real monetary system. It's in your credit card. So I don't know what's going with all that, but I just take credit, convert it to debt, and I buy assets. And I pay it back with fake money, and my profits I store in gold and silver. And this, I don't save dollars, I save gold and silver. But I don't need cash, you see, because I can use debt.
Right.
And it's called the infinite return. It's in this book here. Once you understand it, you go, why isn't everybody else doing it? But the reason you do it is because you've been subhypnotically hypnotized.
By
Go to
fake
school,
teachers. Yeah.
Get a job, work hard, pay taxes,
Right.
buy a house because it's an asset and it's not.
Right.
And get out of debt when the rich are getting into debt. That's why I said everything is opposite. There's three sides to a coin: heads, tails, edge, rich, and poor. Most people on the poor side because they went to school. I'm not saying the schools are bad, right, or wrong. I'm not an anarchist. I'm a capitalist, and I teach capitalism.
There is a strange dichotomy among these, the red pill event, the anarchy events, where the anarchists sort of want cryptocurrency, but yet cryptocurrency is as fake as money can get.
I don't know. I don't get into that stuff. I just know gold and silver are God's money. And what I mean by God's money, humans, women, LBGT, whatever, did not create gold and silver. God created it. And God created gold and silver. It was here when the earth was formed, and it'll be here when we're all gone.
Absolutely.
So that's why I put myself on the gold standard. I have lots of gold and silver legally, all declared in safe places outside the banking system. I don't want to be inside the banking system. I go to the banking system to borrow money. I love my banker. I love insurance company. I love pension plans because that's where the money comes from.
Right.
That's why Warren Buffett has Geico. It's an insurance company.
Right.
That's their pools of money.
AIG, all these things.
Yeah, so I go to insurance companies and borrow money. I go to pensions and borrow money. Go to Wall Street to borrow money. I go to the banks to borrow money. And because I'm doing what the government wants, using debt, it's tax-free. When I take personal payments, it's in the form of debt, tax-free. And people say, well, that's anarchism. I said, no, it's capitalism.
You have a lot of these conversations.
Yeah, and I tell you, it's frustrating because they're like most people like my poor dad. They've been educated by teachers who know nothing about money, who kind of lean towards the other side, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They want to tax the rich and give to the poor. Robin Hood. You know.
Well, it's been a very enlightening.
I don't like being the guy they're stealing from.
Right. It's been a very enlightening conversation. I'm glad we had this opportunity to sit down. The book, of course, the new book is Fake Money, Fake Teachers, Fake Assets.
They're all related.
All related. Robert,
So
thank
I don't
you.
touch stock, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs because I don't have to, but you might have to.
I might. Robert, thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for the time.
Look forward to speaking to you in the future. Take care.